What is up, everybody? So I realized that Instagram live videos will stay up for 24 hours, and I plan on leaving this one up for 24 hours. I invited a lot of my friends from New Jersey to watch this, so we're gonna kind of hang out for a second while more people sign on. If you're one of those people that's gonna watch it tomorrow, like I said, man, you could just fast forward to the good parts, but don't miss out on this, man, because this is so important. All right, here's my bro Peyton got here right. Yo, I see all my peoples logging on, man. That is what's up. Gloria, what's up? Colonel, what's up? Peyton, what's up? Peyton, what's going on? Who else is here? Rosana, Michelle, mi prima Margarita de Panama, my cousin from Panama's watching this. What's up, everybody? God bless you. Allison, how's everybody doing? So, Peyton, what's good with you, man?
Man, I'm chilling, bro. I'm chilling.
You in the studio? You about to drop bars or what?
Oh man, so actually I got an album that's coming out Friday, so I've been trying to
another one.
I'm trying to juggle between doing that, trying to prepare for the album to drop. I'm trying to prepare a music video, I'm trying to do all these different things, get ready for to drop another podcast. So I've just been grinding. How about you, man?
I hear you. Same thing, man. Like I said, we just reopened over here on Sunday for the first day, so. Rob Jr., what's up? I see you. Rob Sr., what's up? God bless you. Yo, my boy Jay Ortiz from Philly, what's up? All right, we got some people tuning in, man. This is good. So, yeah, dude, like I said, we just opened over here at Grace Nation on Sunday, so we're still just getting in the rhythm of the quote-unquote new normal. I hate saying it, but there kind of is. My little niece Amaya is watching this. What's up? All right, man, so let's just jump right into it, man. So, yeah, dude, like I said, I asked you to be a part of this.
Yeah.
Because we've known each other for, 8 years, man? I think, Nate introduced me
around there.
Years ago.
Yeah.
You've been one of my favorite people to collaborate with. You know what I mean? We've collaborated on a lot of ministry projects, a lot of community projects. I can nerd it out with you about comic stuff and anime stuff. I mean, you're just that dude. Now, I don't want to let this get past you. I am not a black man. I didn't want that to get past you. But somehow, in spite of that, like I said, we family. You know what I mean? We're family. Yeah. And like the conversation that I had with you on the phone, you know what I mean? It was such an encouraging thing for me on Sunday to be inside of my church, and there was people here worshiping. And everybody, like I said, you had whites, you had blacks, you have Hispanics, we're Grace to the Nations. That's our church's name. And we had all these people in our church together. And the thought doesn't even occur like, yo, this person's white, this person's, when we're underneath, that roof and we're at the foot of the cross, we're family. We're all equal. We're all brothers. We're all sisters. And I'm just like, what can we do to bring that energy outside? Like, how can we take that outside?
Right.
Unless you live under a rock. Yo, Lennon, Max, what up? I see you guys. Tia, Alicia, what's up? Yeah, man. So it's just like, I want to take these things outside. And the reason why I say this is obviously, like I said, there's a lot of craziness going on outside. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. There's been, like I said, Ahmaud Arbery,
right.
he died. That man should still be alive. George Floyd should still be alive. And people are tired, man. People are hurting. Like, I actually set up one of those question thingies on my story, just asking my black friends and family, like, yo, it ain't my place to tell you how to feel right now. It ain't my place to tell you how you should be thinking about this. Just let me know, like, what do you expect from us? What do you want from us? And one comment that, like, almost brought me to tears was somebody was just like, yo, I'm not going to shout out no names or whatever, but they were just like, yo, just try to be understanding, man. We're tired. Just like that. Right. And I was like, that one just hit me. So where are you at, man? How are you doing? How's everything? You're a man of God. I know that if all hell breaks out around you, you got the King of Heaven living inside of you. So I know you're good, but I want to hear from you. How are you doing, man?
So, yeah, on top of, personally, I'm good. But, yeah, I'm hurting, man. I'm hurting, Not only is it that, these stories that are coming out, these incidents that are occurring, these tragedies that are occurring with people that are my same skin color, just the fact that injustice is happening in this magnitude, when it comes, there's still blatant racism, there's still blatant injustice for Black people, for people of color in general. And that on top of what's happened just breaks my heart. You were just saying you posted out something, and the response that you got really moved you. A response that I got really moved me as well. I put out a post just saying, and it wasn't meant to get people's anybody's response, but I had put on there, when the riots really began happening, when really things started to get like, whoa, like what, cities, even our city of Tucson decided to follow suit, and people were angry, and people were destroying things downtown and just causing all kinds of chaos. I put out a post on Facebook, and I said, I have been coming to God saying, how do I respond? Because I was angry too. I was angry. I was tired. I was like, this doesn't make sense. We're in the year 2020 and this is still happening. And a brother, I'm not going to put out any names either, but a brother posted on my post, and he said, man, and it broke my heart, because he said something along the lines of, man, I'll let y'all do the praying. Praying has done nothing for me. It hasn't brought my brothers and sisters back. And it broke my heart, because number one, he didn't know the power of God. But number two, he was that upset and that angry. And hearing, he's probably been in situations where people have been like, man, pray for people of color. Oh, we'll pray for you, brother. But there was probably no action behind it either. God did, they didn't move on as what God told them to do. They weren't inspired to make change after connecting with God. And I think up top of trying to understand, we should also be asking that question to God. We should have been coming to God. The church should have been coming to God saying, how do I respond? How do you want us to move? How do you want us to minister to your people? Instead of just giving our opinions as to what happened. I saw so many opinions about the situation. They'll be like, oh man, I know it was a tragedy. It was horrible what happened to George Floyd, but the riots, man, everybody, I don't understand why people are rioting. It's a shame. It's this, that, and the third. And we were beginning to drown out what the true situation was, what we truly should be worrying, we truly should be praying to God, what we truly should be responding to, was that another tragic event happened with a person of color, clear, blatant disregard for his life. And that's what should have broke our hearts. And I saw too much of people worrying about the riots. Now, mind you, we've seen the destruction of riots. Riots are bad. I totally was against it. I totally told people, hey, nah, I'm not for that. I told friends, do not go out to the protests, for your own safety. When they had the candlelight vigil for George Floyd, I was cool with that. I was like, yeah, everybody come out to that. But I was totally not for these riots. But you got to understand too, this is pent up aggression. I try to explain it to my wife, and I try to explain it to other people like this. If you have a child in school, and they're constantly getting sent to the principal's office, or constantly getting suspended for fighting. And so you're not going to I'm like, most of us parents are going to be upset that our kid is fighting, but we're going to, after a while, try to figure out, why are you always fighting? And then you come to find out they're fighting a bully who's constantly picking on them. So what do we do as parents? We go and we go with our kid and we speak to the teachers, we speak to the principal, we speak to the counselors, we try to get this resolved, we even speak to the other parents. But what about the situation when you have the kid getting bullied, they're constantly fighting, and nothing's being done to correct it? Nothing's being done to stop it. Over and over and over and over again.
It's
I don't
funny
know
you
about.
use that analogy. I don't mean to jump in. So hold that
No, go
thought,
ahead.
but I just remember in kindergarten and first grade, I used to get bullied a lot. I was like the runt. I was smaller than everybody. And I remember my parents just bought me this like really nice new shirt, and the collar got ripped. And my dad was like, "What happened to your shirt?" And I'm like, "Man, this dude, he grabbed me by my shirt and threw me around." And then he's just like, "What do you mean he threw you around?" I'm like, "Yeah, he does it every day." And then he's like, "Did you tell the teacher?" And I was just like, "Yeah." So he's like, "What did the teacher do?" I said, "Nothing." So he's just like, "All right, next time he does that, punch him in the mouth." Just like that. So my dad told me to do.
Right.
So when it happened again, that's what I did. I hit the bully, and when I hit the bully back, that's when the reaction was like, "Whoa!" The teacher was like, "Why'd you do that? This and that." And they called my parents, and and I was just like, "Yo, I told you," and my parents was just like, like, we told him to do this because you weren't doing nothing. You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
like, at the very beginning of all of this, because it happened so fast. I fell under the umbrella. I'm just going to throw myself under the bus. I fell under the umbrella of those people that had an opinion. All right. And as men of God, a lot of the times we have to surrender that luxury of having an opinion. You know what I mean? Like we really do have to surrender that luxury because our opinion isn't really going to do much for anybody. It's not going to. So the more I started to engage in conversation, people just kept on, people kept on just like telling me how they feel about it and then you just using this example right now about like that resonated with me a lot. That resonated with me a lot because like I said, I told the teacher, I was like, "Yo, he keeps on bullying me." Teacher didn't do nothing. So I was like, all right, if the teacher's not going to do nothing, I'm going to do something. So
Exactly.
continue. I just wanted to comment on that thought right there.
No, that was perfect. That was perfect. And that's what ends up happening. Either you get into the fights and then the teachers are like, "Why did you do that?" Teachers, they're part of what happens is that both kids get in trouble. Regardless of what happens, both kids get in trouble. Both kids get suspended because they want to eliminate any kind of fighting. Well, it's almost similar with this. When you have peaceful protests, when you have things like Colin Kaepernick kneeling during the national anthem to protest what is happening in our country, and then we get people, even Christians, saying that is wrong. They're not looking at the big picture. They're just saying, well, the act was wrong. So like the teachers said, "Oh, the act was wrong of you fighting the bully. You should have just kept coming to them." But if nothing is happening when we're doing the peaceful protest, when nothing is happening when you're going through things the right way, you end up having no choice. The end result, the byproduct of pent up aggression and nothing seeming to be done is extreme burst of anger. We've all had it. We've all been frustrated with somebody. We've all been frustrated with something, some situation. And when it seems like things don't change, we lash out. It's normal human emotion. So when you've got 400 years of oppression for a people, you don't have to see it personally. You don't have to experience it personally to know that to say that it's not real. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not, you can't sit up here and deny this. Like, I was just thinking about it earlier, before we got on this call. I was like, man, we kind of started to sweep things under the rug in going into the 90s and going into the 2000s. We kind of swept that stuff under the rug. So sometimes I think there's almost a generation of people who've never even seen this before. They never saw the situations like Trayvon Martin. They never saw the situations like Mike Brown. They never saw the George Floyds, and they never saw these things personally. So outside of their bubble, they're like, huh? This makes no sense. So if it doesn't make sense to me, the initial reaction is, I can't just jump on board. And sometimes we have to get out of ourselves. Like, I was talking to my wife and I said, though my people are oppressed, though I've experienced discrimination, though I've experienced profiling, though I've experienced things that I hope that, when I have children, they'll never have to experience. I still don't know exactly what it feels like to be an Hispanic American. My wife is Hispanic. I said she has a family member who got deported that she made, and she's like, yeah, I totally get that. But she's like, but I can still go see him. When she told me that, I was like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, they don't have to have that fear of dying when they see the police. They just have to go be deported. But still, I don't know that feeling. I don't know how she feels about that. So I can't comment and say, well, I know exactly how you're feeling because my people are oppressed too. No, it's still a different situation. And it's still a chance for me to understand and to have conversation with her. So that, to me, I'm like, we need to make sure we're having those conversations. I don't want to try to jump through our points, but I just want to say.
No, and you know what? Like I said, I was in a conversation and I kind of regret saying something that I did. Like, I'm going to be throwing myself under the bus all night or, throughout this whole thing. I never have had I've never had an issue admitting when I'm wrong about something.
Right.
So a friend of mine posted on, actually I should, well, we're friendly, but like, I haven't talked to this dude since like middle school, but we've, been Facebook friends and all this other stuff. And, he posted this thing out of frustration. I could tell this dude was frustrated. And he's just like, something along the lines of, when's the last time you saw a video of a white dude getting choked out or, something along those lines or whatever. All right. So I responded with something that's factual, but still wasn't appropriate. At least I feel that it wasn't appropriate now that I look back at it. I responded with, because this is factual, and at any point, my brother, if you disagree with anything I say, like, we're two grown men, dude. Like, I'm not going to get upset if you're just like, I don't agree with that. You know what I mean? That's kind of a problem I see with America in general, where like disagreement is seen as like a slap in the face when it really shouldn't. But long story short, all right, so I just told him, I'm like, like the FBI and the Department of Justice homicide data, like it shows that, you know what I mean? White people get killed by cops too, at a higher number, is what I said. And I sent him the links of the data or whatever. And he responded with, well, yeah, naturally that's going to happen because, there's a lot more white people in this country. So I was like, all right,
exactly.
That's fair. That's fair. You know what I mean? If there's 100 cats in my backyard and 15 dogs,
right.
I kill 20 cats and I kill 10 dogs. The dogs are going to feel a lot more scared because they're like, oh, snap, there was only 15 of us and 10 of us just died. So, you know what I mean? Like, that was kind of helpful for me to see it. But, like, the point that I'm trying to get at right here is I feel like there's a lot of instigating happening. And I kind of spoke with you about this a little bit, like, in our text messages and stuff. I feel like one of the biggest, and please, correct me if you don't think this is right. I think that there's just so much instigation in the sense that Black Americans are nonstop everywhere they look. Every time you turn on the TV, every time you log on to social media, every time you look at Twitter, every time you're seeing somebody that looks like you getting killed, or you're seeing a report every time, that, like this person was just shot by a white cop, or, whatever the case might have been, or like Ahmaud Arbery. Everybody had an opinion like that. Like, yeah, he was punching the guy in the face, but that reaction was forced out of him. Like, if you block my path, I'm a legal gun owner, dude. You know what I mean? If you block my path and you step out with a shotgun, I'm gonna feel all kinds of threats. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And my gun would have came out, and one of us would have died. That's what would have happened in that situation. Like, I'm not trying to sound tough, but I would have felt.
That's common sense.
But the point that I was gonna make is that I feel like the media is largely responsible. I will go as far as to say 85% responsible for the rioting that we saw, because the media will exclusively make a public spectacle out of any story that will feel racial tension. For example, one of the most like horrible stories that I've heard from this was about a kid named Tyshawn Lee. He was 9 years old, playing basketball in Chicago. He gets lured off the court by a grown man. They shoot him in the head, execution style. Nobody knew his name. Nobody knew his story. Nobody knew anything about it really because, and this is just, please feel free to correct me, it's just because it wouldn't fuel racial tension. Now, these injustices that happen, they need to be, reported. They need to be put out. But I just feel like, and it bothers me. It bothers me because it's just like the only time the death of a black man, woman, or child is made this big, is if it's going to fuel racial tension. You know what I mean? And that, like I said, like, all right, I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of my friends, I have, cousins in Panama, that look just like you, straight up, I'm trying to put myself in it, and I'm just like, all right, what would that do to my psyche and my mind if I'm just seeing that all the time? If that's the only thing being reported, I'm going to be scared. I'm going to be pissed off. I'm going to be confrontational. I'm going to be volatile. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So let me start like this. I've been blessed. I've been really blessed to not have ever been in a situation where with a cop where I've been afraid for my life, where I felt my life was threatened. I truly feel that I've been blessed. I truly feel like God has protected me from that. Because I'm just gonna be honest, it could have happened to me. One of the stories that I heard at the candlelight vigil for George Floyd was a young lady, and I forgot her name, but her father in 1999 was racially profiled by a cop and killed at a gas station here in Tucson. Now, just here in Tucson, just before me and my homie Memo got to the candlelight vigil, we were thinking, we were like, man, we don't recall any situation like George Floyd happening here in Tucson. And then we heard this young lady's story. Happened in 1999. Dude was in his late 20s. Took 6 years for them to finally have a court case. So then you think in 2005, then he was never convicted. He was let go. You could tell the hurt and pain in her eyes, in her speech. She couldn't finish what she was the story. Her cousin had to finish the story, and she's all that this man has left. So that was the first strike for me. I'm like, man, like this is really real. It started to really, like, before it was always just like, man, like this sucks. I'm hurting because just in general, people are dying unjustly.
Yeah.
But now it's people who look like me dying unjustly. Now I know of people in Tucson who have died unjustly. And then I go back after the candlelight vigil. My wife seemed fine when I left. But then me and my homie Memo go back to his house because his wife and my wife were hanging out. And my wife starts breaking down. And at first I'm not thinking of why. I'm like, why? It's Tucson. I'm good. But it dawned on me when I saw my wife crying for my safety. And her post, I don't know if you saw it, but she made a post and tagged me on it saying that I'm afraid. I'm trying not to live in fear, but I'm afraid that when my husband leaves out the house, will he return back? And I said, man, now it's getting to a point where I'm like, oh snap, this is really real. So yeah, it creates fear, it creates hurt, it creates anger, because it's like I said, we're in 2020. Why are we still going through this? And then why do people still act like it doesn't happen? Like, well, we don't know all the facts. You don't have to know all the facts to know something.
Okay, so, and these are two things that, because like I said, me, I am directly half down the middle, white on my dad's side, Hispanic on my mom's side. You know what I mean? So, I don't know where I don't know how people, like, you know, a lot of the times if I comment on an issue, people will be like, you shouldn't comment on that issue because you're not XYZ. The point of the matter is, there's never been a time in my life, growing up all the way till now, there's never been a time in my life where there wasn't black people in my life that mattered to me. There has not been a single solitary time. When I was in kindergarten, you know, the kids that I used to play baseball with and stuff, you know, it was a mix. You had white kids, you had black, you know, we weren't thinking about that. We were kids. We were out there having fun, we were whatever. Growing up, you know, in church, you know, I grew up in church. I was like two of my mentors that like put me on to ministry, that got me to, you know, to where I am today, Adina Kring and Jesse West. You know what I mean? That me, and it's like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. So there's always been a time there always has been and always will be a time where, like I said, there's black people in my life that matter to me. Now, one thing that makes me cringe is when people, and I think the reason why, I'll tell you the reason why I think people say this, but when somebody like posts or says Black Lives Matter and the response is all lives matter, I cringe because those are like all right, I think about the Beatitudes when Jesus was giving his message, when he said, blessed are the poor, you know what I mean? Blessed are the poor in spirit. Like if somebody would have been like, well, you know, the rich matter too, or everyone else, the middle class matters too. He's just like, all right, well, let me talk about what I'm talking about. You know?
Exactly.
Blessed are those who are mourning. Blessed are those who are well, why are we talking about? So like, I will say straight up, and I think the reason why I think more people agree with the phrase Black Lives Matter. I don't think there's as many people that disagree with that as we might think, because all lives matter kind of sounds like a protest to that. I think the reason why, and I'm going to try not to go down this slope, you know, I try to stay neutral on these things, but I think a lot of the reason why people respond that way is because when they hear that phrase, they think of the organization's affiliation with the Democrat Party. You know what I mean? That's the reason why I think people respond the way they do. But either way, it makes me cringe like crazy, because it's just like, bro, nobody said all lives didn't matter. And I see people say that, like, you know what I mean? I'll even just be honest. I've seen Christians that I respect respond with that, and I'm just like, yo, come on, man, like we've got to do better than that. So if you would do me the honor, comment on that. Yeah,
I mean, there's all kinds of analogies you can say to respond to that, but I liked what you said about Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, because that Carl Lentz was talking about that. He was like, yo, you know, there's certain responses that aren't helpful. The word says in Ephesians 4 that if we're gonna speak, we need to speak with words that are going to build people up, not tear people down. So sometimes we have to understand that the response should be in a way to build people up. You shouldn't be, you know, saying, hey, you know, brown lives matter. I'm not going to then respond to pretty much tell you to shut up by saying, well, yeah, because all lives matter. That's literally how the phrase comes off.
You feel it comes off as like a shut up, basically, right?
As a shut up, basically. Because one of the analogies I heard is, if your house is on fire, if somebody's house is on fire, what does everybody do? Everybody tries to come help put out the fire. You either call in 911. If you got a fire extinguisher, you out there with a fire extinguisher. Like, you know, you out there with a hose. Whatever you need to do to help put out the fire, because somebody's house is on fire. Somebody is having an emergency. The fire department and everybody in the neighborhood knows that the fire department is in the area for the entire neighborhood, for the entire section of that city. So you don't have to tell the person whose house is on fire, well, everybody's house is on. Everybody needs the fire department. Yes, we know that, but this person's house is on fire.
Yeah.
So if somebody is saying, hey, I am hurt, I am hurting, I'm in need, I'm not going to turn around and say, well, we all hurt. No, we need to be able to, as ministers of reconciliation, this is what we're called. This is who we're called to be. We are supposed to minister. We are supposed to tend to people, not think about ourselves. That response makes it selfish. If you're saying you're in need, but I say, yeah, we all have needs. That is a selfish response. So it's not helpful for me to tell you that we all have needs when you're asking me that you're in need. I should be able to say, my correct response should be, how can I help you? So when we say Black Lives Matter, we're not saying Black Lives Matter only. We're saying, hey, I don't feel like I matter. Do I not matter?
Yeah.
We don't. It's not to. The response shouldn't be, well, yeah, everybody matters. Well, obviously, I'm not mattering. So, do I matter? But yeah, everybody matters. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm asking, do I matter to you? Because I don't feel like I matter to you.
Yeah.
Another analogy: if we're all working at the same job, we all know organizations, jobs, corporations. They all have a certain law. They all have certain guidelines to protect their employees from discrimination, depending on race, religion, age, sex, whatever. We know that if somebody's feeling like they're not being treated correctly according to those guidelines, what do? We go to our managers, we go to our supervisors, we go to HR. HR, the managers, everybody's response should not be, well, yeah, everybody's supposed to be treated fairly. I'm not being treated fairly. I need help. Your response shouldn't be, well, yeah, everybody should be treated fairly. That's what that means.
Yeah.
That's what it's coming off as.
Yeah, man. So that's something that that always sat wrong with me. And you mentioned Kaepernick before too. So I wanna say something about him as well. Because I am like I'm super like I don't know. I'm very proud to be from this country. I'm very proud that I was born here, that I was raised here, that I get to live here. You know, my mom and my grandma, they put themselves at risk to get here so that their future generations could enjoy, you know, what this country offers. And with Colin Kaepernick, I was so confused about that situation, about the outrage about him kneeling, because first off, kneeling in almost every context. If you walked in the room right now and I kneeled, I'm showing profound respect for you. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Kneeling in every context is a sign of respect. But let's just pretend it wasn't. Let's pretend that instead of kneeling, that when it was time for the flag, that he was giving it that he was holding his middle finger up, which would have been super wrong. I wouldn't like that. But even if I would still be happy for the fact that I live in a country where that guy could express himself however he feels like. You know what I mean? So even though he wasn't doing it in a disrespectful way, I feel proud to be an American where I see somebody, because for example, if Colin Kaepernick lived in North Korea, he would probably get shot in the back of the head for something like that. So I pride myself on the fact that I live in a country where somebody can express themselves and not get shot, not have anything. So like that was another thing that I'm just not gonna lie, like it's something that really baffled me. It baffled me a lot. And I saw a meme that said, I don't know if I'm phrasing it right. It says that if you're okay with this kneeling, and it showed the cop kneeling on George Floyd's neck. If you're okay with this kneeling and you're not okay with that kneeling,
right, I seen
you're
it.
the problem or whatever. Which is a sentiment I agree with, but this is where I want to go with that. I don't think there's a single, maybe there's like one or two sickos in the country that are okay with what, or are trying to defend this cop. But like 99.99999% of the country all agrees that what happened to that guy should not have happened. All right. Watching that video, hearing him beg for his life, that like I wish I never watched it. There's something unsettling about hearing a grown man beg for his life that just sticks with you. You know what I mean? That's horrible. And this is something that we collectively, for the most part, all agree with. Now, what I wanted to highlight, kind of going back to the instigation issues, I feel like when people respond with all lives matter, that's a form of instigation, I think. When people were upset with Kaepernick for kneeling. That's instigating. When the media nonstop will only focus on these stories and put it in your face every day. It was Killer Mike when Killer Mike was talking about the for those of you who don't know, because there's a lot of Christians on here, all right? You know what I mean? Killer Mike is an Atlanta rapper, you know what I mean? He's an activist too. So he was commenting on the CNN building that got busted up and burned and whatever else in Atlanta. And he says, I don't want to see nobody get hurt. I don't want to see nothing like that. He says, but this is what you get, because when you feed people fear and anger every single day, this is the reaction you could expect. And he told them straight up, stop feeding people fear. Stop making them fearful and give them hope. This has been so instigated to the point that I don't even know. I can't even put into words how I feel about it, because largely, collectively, obviously there's racism in this country. Obviously there's racism from one side of the spectrum to the other. Like I said, I'm half white, half Hispanic. I've experienced racism from both ends of the spectrum. I don't really care to get into the details right now, but I've experienced it. Largely, collectively, we get along. For the most part, we get along. For every story like George Floyd, you know what I mean? There's a trillion interactions in which we're getting along, where white and black people are going to each other's graduations, celebrating each other's accomplishments, buying toys for each other's kids on Christmas, going to each other's birthday parties, going to each other's weddings, marrying each other. You know what I mean? Playing sports together, watching the game together, watching the Super Bowl together, going to church together. Like, for the most part, we get along. And I wish that could be highlighted. I wish there was a way that could highlight that. For example, at church, this last Sunday at church, I'm like, the whole world is going crazy around us with this racial tension. And in here, it's nothing but love. So how can we take this outside, man? If there's one thing that I walk away with from this discussion today, and yo, dude, I'm so thankful for what you've said so far, because it's helping me see things differently. You know what I mean? It's helping me see things from a pair of shoes that I don't wear. So what I really want to walk away with the most is, how can we take this energy? LFCC is another very multicultural church. I've been there many times. You got everybody in there, man. Everybody loves each other. Everybody gets along. How can we take this outside?
There's a couple of scriptures that God helps us do to take this outside. One of them is in Romans 9:14 through 16. It says, "What shall we say then? Is there injustice on God's part? By no means. For he says to Moses, I will have mercy on whom I have mercy. I will have compassion on whom I have compassion." So then it depends not on human will or exertion, but on God who has mercy. We need to be more merciful. We need to have compassion for people in general. It doesn't matter what's the situation. It doesn't matter what race they are. We need to have compassion for our people. If I see that you are angry for the way that your race is being mistreated, when everything was going on, when everybody was tripping about the way that our government was treating illegal immigrants, stripping kids away from their mothers, that to me should break our hearts, especially as Christians. That should break our hearts, regardless of the situation. Yes, they may have come over illegally. That is a crime. I still have compassion for the people to say, what can we do to help? What can we do to help my Latino American brothers and sisters who feel a type of way about that? I may never understand, but to bring that love from outside of the four walls of the church to the world, one of the things is we need to have compassion. I should be able to be, like I said, a minister of reconciliation. How can I help reconcile the situation between these two butting heads? How, as you know, if I was a white person, and I'll talk about a situation that I had. As a white person, I would want to ask, how can I reconcile this broken relationship? How can I reconcile the broken image of how a black man sees a cop and how possibly a cop sees a black man? How can I reconcile how a white person sees a situation and a black person sees a situation and that tension behind that? You know, one of the best responses I got from my post on Facebook was an old friend of mine from high school, and she asked, she said, "What, as white people, can we do to help?" That's all we want. We want understanding. We want conversations. So I told her, we want those conversations to help you understand, why am I so angry? Why am I so hurt? And then hopefully once you understand, we can then say, okay, let's tackle now the injustice that's causing the hurt and causing the pain but there should be a compassion towards people. I don't just get mad because you're mad about something. If you're mad and if we're in church together and you're upset, you've just been upset, there's just been something that's happened, somebody's disrespected you, your family, something of that sort, something's had you upset. And you just furious. You're punching holes in walls. Yeah, it's not the best thing to do. It's not the best attitude to have to coming into the church. But instead of me being like, "Oh, you're so wrong, you're so wrong, you're so wrong. This is wrong. You shouldn't be doing that. You're so wrong." Immediately, I should be like Christ and having compassion for people and saying, "Wait a minute. Why are you angry? What can I do to help? You just want me to leave you alone? Cool, man. Take a breather. Go outside. When you're ready, come back in. Let's talk, man. I'm here for you." I had a pastor friend, Pastor John Coates. He was just talking on a Facebook Live earlier today. And one of the things he would tell his black friends the people that he was ministering to who were black, he was saying, "Hey, I may not ever understand, but I'm here. I'm here to listen." That's all. That's simple, basic principles. And then one more scripture that I got here, Isaiah 1:17. Isaiah 1:17 says, "Learn to do good, seek justice, correct oppression, bring justice to the fatherless, plead the widow's cause." I'm like, come on, let's just seek justice, correct oppression. Let's not harp about the irrelevant things. I'm not gonna sit up here like I've heard responses like, "Well, what about black on black crime?" What about black on black crime? Mm-hmm. That's not the issue at the moment. There's tons of people fighting black on black crime. Mm-hmm. The issue at the moment is innocent black people getting killed by the police. People who are sworn to protect. We need to address the issue at hand as ministers. Mm-hmm. Let's tackle this issue. Then if you want to know about other issues that are happening, hey, I can then tell you, hey, these organizations here. I can tell you about this person here fighting black on black crime. I can tell you this person about fighting black on black crime. I can tell you, I'm like, yeah, not everybody thinks the same. Not everybody's a Christian. Not everybody has the mind of Christ. So there's some people who are going to say stuff that I don't agree with. And I'll be like, yeah, there's correction on both sides. There needs to be correction on both sides. That's not what we should be arguing about. We shouldn't be arguing about riots. Riots happen after a football game if a ref calls a bad play. Riots happen.
Philadelphia too. They won the Super Bowl. I called it. Because I lived right across, the other side of the bridge from Philly. You know what I mean? Central Jersey. And I was like, watch. If they win the Super Bowl, they're gonna tear their city up. If they lose the Super Bowl, they're gonna tear the city up. Either way, they're going to tear their city up.
And it's wrong. And it's looked down
absolutely.
But we're not tripping about it as much as we do with this. With this, it's like, we'll give a little blip. I remember seeing people's posts. They'll give a little blip saying what was done to George Floyd was horrible, it's distasteful. But the riots, though, and they give this long, drawn-out thing. We're putting more attention on that. Those aren't the right responses, guys. We need to have compassion for our people. We need to show them the love of Christ and say, I'm going to attend to your exact need. Why are you so angry? Explain to me. Why are you so angry? If you talk to somebody who's angry, they may respond angry. They may respond abrasive. You got to be prepared for stuff like that. But at least you're in a step in the right direction. So that's just how I see it. I don't know. What about you?
Well, yeah, and this is something, like I said, this is a value that my dad instilled in me very young, and I'm glad that I was able to take that to adulthood. Was just never be so much of a punk to where you can't admit when you're wrong. You know, and a lot of the conversations that I've had, like, even though the information I was citing was factual, like I said, it just wasn't the right response. The more that I listened, the more that I started to hear, I'm just like, all right, how would I feel if every single time I'm on social media, every single time I'm watching the news, that's the main story right there. Like, yo, somebody that looked just like you was stopped in traffic and they're not alive now. Like I said, we, as human beings, like, you know what I mean? Survival is our first instinct. You know, that is our most primitive instinct, you know, and when we start to get threatened or, you know what I mean? When we start to get fearful or whatever, like it's very surprising what we can do. You know what I mean? It's very, there's no limits to it. What I just want more than anything is, like I said, is I love how in your response you pointed to the scriptures, you pointed to Jesus, and that's what I've had somebody say, because everything that I've been posting about this, I've been trying to point people to the cross. Not because, you know what I mean, I'm trying to look all extra spiritual or because I work at a church. It's because, one, I know what my faith has done for my life. Anybody that knows me, you know, any of my people from Jersey that's watching right now, they can tell you the kind of person I was before I became a youth pastor and all of that. And I know that there is no wound, there's no hurt, there's no struggle, there's no pain, there's no nothing that my God can't heal. So it's just like, you know what I mean? When, you know, people are like, nah, don't talk about that right now. We need reform. We need this. We need that. I'm like, okay, amen. We do need that. But what is going to give you the long-term healing that you need is the cross. And I just feel like a lot of pastors, all right, so there was one day where I saw so many pastors that I knew personally or pastors that I just follow that I look up to a lot. And I'm just listening to everything they're saying. I'm reading everything they're posting. And I'm like, yo, out of like 25 posts that I just read, only 2 of y'all pointed to the cross. Only 2 pointed people to salvation. You know what I mean? And like I said, we can have opinions. My opinion isn't going to do nothing for you. My opinion is not going to heal that pain. It's not going to do nothing. So, like, I just recently taught my youth, you know, through video, of course, about the 2 greatest commandments. Love God with all your heart, mind, and soul. Love your neighbor as yourself. If tomorrow, starting tomorrow, okay, or 12 a.m. tonight, every single person in America just did those 2 things. Nothing else. Nothing complicated. Nothing crazy. If you could just do those 2 things, love God and love your neighbor as if he was you. Love Peyton as if he was me. If we all did that, there's not going to be no people getting killed by cops. There's not going to be no riots. There's not going to be none of that. And a lot of people, like, I really don't even know how to, because what I'm really trying to learn is how to engage the people that are hurting through this, because I have not been in your shoes, but especially the non-believer. How can I point you to the cross without you feeling like I'm being dismissive? Because that's what I've had somebody tell me. It's like, you know what I mean? When I'm sitting here talking about that, I'm afraid for my life, and you're over here talking to me about this blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus, which, of course, I didn't. You know what I mean? That's just the way.
No, real talk though. Yeah,
your white man's religion and this and that. That's not gonna do nothing to me. And I'm just like, yo, my man, if you only knew the darkness that it pulled me out of, if you only knew the path of destruction that it pulled me off of, you know what I mean? I was more dangerous to myself than any cop was dangerous to you. I was the biggest danger to myself. I was, you know what I mean? And nothing or nobody was able to stop me from that. When I gave my brokenness, when I gave my hurt to Jesus, that's when when that danger was removed from me. And that's when I was, you know what I mean? So it's just like, now more than ever, I feel like the church needs to be pushing this message, needs to be getting this message out. Yeah, don't ignore people. Yeah, let's talk about reform. But that reform is going to be temporary. It's only a matter of time before some other person is just going to be like, screw this guy. I'm going to shoot this guy. You know? Exactly.
It is. It comes down to a heart issue. Like,
amen.
I'm big on, yes, we need to expose people so they can be accountable. We need to expose corrupt systems so they can be reformed. But just as you said, there's always going to be somebody else who's corrupt. There's always going to be a new system or a new loophole in an old system that's corrupt that is going to keep them from being accountable. The only way permanent true change occurs, and we know it, is by encounter with God. Why? When encounter with God happens, change happens because there's a heart change. There's a change of the heart. The scripture tells us that he turns the heart from stone to flesh, meaning he warms the heart. He gives us the peace, the kindness. He gives us the fruit of the Spirit by breaking our stone heart and then giving us now a new heart, a heart that's filled with compassion, a heart that's filled with mercy, a heart that is like his. Something that you said great when you were talking about the scripture in Matthew, how he gave the disciples the 2 greatest commandments. Jesus also says right after those, he said, you follow these 2 things. I'm paraphrasing. He says, you follow these 2 things, everything else is going to fall into place. You love God with all your heart, with your everything, because we believe that we are a three-part being, body, soul, spirit. You love God with everything. Then I take that same love that I have with God and I love you. I love my neighbor. I love my brothers and sisters in church. Just like you said at LFCC was the same way. Everybody was loving on each other. There was no tension.
Yeah.
We show that same love to the rest of the world, even if they don't like us. What made Dr. King leading the civil rights movement so powerful and so impactful and caused so much to happen. Mind you, I was brought to this realization, all the civil rights movement was back in 1960. That was what, 50, 60 years ago? That wasn't that long ago.
Mm.
That after that movement, that non-violent movement, that movement in love, things began to change. The systems began to be broken. The systems began to be exposed. People's hearts began to change when they saw people peacefully protesting and violent acts happening to them. A heart change happened, which is why we had which is why we progressed. Yes, there's still things that need to be taken care of, obviously. But if not for that peaceful movement, I wouldn't have the right to be able to have this conversation with you. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't be able to have the right to speak these. So it comes down to relationship. The kingdom is founded on relationship. You want to know how to break through to somebody? Develop relationship. This person says, I don't want to deal with anything about your white Jesus because it feels so far away. It feels so unrelatable. Why? Because there's no relationship there.
Wow.
There's no kind of relationship there. How you got saved, how I got saved was by people were developing relationships with us.
People going the extra mile, yes, amen.
People going the extra mile. They were going to what we supported. They were in the thick with us. They were in the trenches with us. They were at the hospitals with us. They were at the places pulling us out of the situations we shouldn't have been in. They were the person we were able to call and be like, bro, man, can you come get me? And they come get you at 2:00 in the morning.
That's right.
That's the relationship building. So as the church, we need to be able to now go out into the world and tend the needs of the people and say, oh, you got a rally? You got a candlelight vigil? I'm going to be there. I ain't got to say nothing. I ain't got to go speak. I ain't got to go then, be like, all right, I've been here. I supported you. Now let's talk about Jesus. No, it takes time because it took time for us. It took time for us to see that relationship. The scripture says, and I'm paraphrasing again, Jesus told the disciples, the world, pretty much in a sense, the world will know that I'm real because of your love for one another.
Yeah, amen. That's right.
And it's because of that relationship that the disciples had. Once they see the relationship that you have, once you build a relationship with somebody, you begin to see the vulnerable side of them. You begin to see the true character of them. white men discipled me. A white man discipled me and showed me the love of Christ that got me saved. So it's to break down those strongholds, because I was like, all I knew was black church. So when those guys are like, man, I don't know about your white Jesus. When you develop that relationship with them and show them, like, yeah, what's depicted in that picture is not my God. Here's who my God is, and you see it in me. Relationship, man. Relationship is key. Building relationships and just having where they're showing the compassion, showing the mercy, showing the love. That's what's going to break down these strongholds. That's what's going to get people to understand, to have those heart changes, and that's what's going to get people to see that Christ is.
And you know what really, like, when I started to read the Bible for myself and I started to see, all right, so I'm trying to make a very long story short here, but like I said, I left the church when I was 17 because of essentially legalism. Because no matter what, just like I showed up and I was there, and no matter what I did, what I wore, what I said, how I did it, somebody always has something to say. And I'm like, I'm sick of coming into this place and just being ripped up every time. And some other stuff happened. I was 17 years old. I'm like, I'm leaving the church. I'm never coming back. When I started to read, when I just started to get into my word, and I was seeing the scuffles that Jesus had with legalistic people, I was like, wow, like he experienced what I experienced. So right now in this context, where people are feeling marginalized and people are feeling that they're being treated unfairly, if anybody knows what it's like to be treated unfairly, it's Jesus. You know what I mean? He was falsely accused. He was beaten and spit on for things that he didn't do. He had, just all kinds of stuff. And like, I really feel like if we were able to get that message across to people, because it's like, I heard Jesus preach my entire life. It wasn't until I looked for him myself where I really saw who he was and how it related to me. And at this time, like I said, I really just, once again, man, I'm so grateful for everything that you said right now. Like it's my perspective was already widening, and it's even more so. And the last thing I want to add before we move on, or before we wrap it up, obviously Jesus is the answer. And even though we want to see reform, we want to see changes in the culture and everything, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I would rather tell somebody the truth that's painful than coddle them with a nice sounding lie. And the truth of the matter is, any reform that we put into place, it will only be a temporary band-aid. The root of the issue is sin. The root of injustice or racism, anything, is sin. And what is sin? I can hear this word from God and make my own way around it. I can do whatever else. The Garden of Eden, don't eat from that tree. Well, I think I can eat from this tree right now. They thought of their own way. So injustice, murder, rape, alcoholism, everything. I can go down the list. Those are all fruits of sin. And so is racism and injustice. And for anybody watching, because like I said, I only have a minute and a half left, and I want to give Peyton some time to wrap this up too. Anybody watching that does not know Jesus as your Lord, as your Savior, as of anything, me, myself, and I'm just going to volunteer Peyton as well. Like, we would love to talk to you about the darkness that he pulled us from, the changes that he made in our lives, just the peace that we found in him. If there's anything that this world needs right now, it's some peace and love. And you could find that in Jesus. I promise you. And if you need somebody to talk to about that, hit me up, hit him up. Peyton, we got 53 seconds. Wrap it up, dude.
All right. Let's start building. Let's start building relationships. Let's start understanding one another. Let's start discussing to understand. Have those painful conversations. I see a brother on here saying, not Drake, he's saying the world should be praying right now instead of fighting each other. Yes, we shouldn't be fighting each other, but with that prayer, let's start seeking God for action. What should I do? That was a question I asked him throughout this week. What should I do? How should I respond? Because sometimes the church does look at it like, okay, y'all, or sometimes the world looks at it like, okay, y'all just pray, but you're not doing anything. God gives us commandments. God gives us commandments. So, relationship, come to God, asking him what we should do for direction.